It's hard for me to do this with one hand, but you need a drink for this. Judgment Day 2004.
A pay-per-view. A pay-per-view I thought I had fond memories with just because I owned the DVD. And, you know, back then when streaming wasn't a thing. Yeah. When streaming wasn't a thing and you can only watch what you're obtained, especially through middle school friends that just happen to have a random assortment of DVDs that they give or they sell to you.
Yep.
And this is all you got, and this is what you got to enjoy. Wow.
You know, I remember this being one of the cheapest DVDs I ever added into my collection when I was growing up. And I was like, oh, sick. This pay-per-view is cheap. I'll go ahead and add it. Little did I know, the reason why it's cheap is because it fucking sucks. Like, it's always good to see your face, Tomas, and being able to talk to you about wrestling. We've done, like, over 90 of these now, and God, I do not want to talk about this show. This show is horrible. It was a horrible
we were talking
program.
about this during the show. We have spent a good part of this retrospective praising SmackDown, especially in the Ruthless Aggression era. Look, I'm a SmackDown boy, true and true. No matter what, even through all the bad stuff, I have been a SmackDown guy. But let's just say the next few, I want to say the next 2, maybe 3 SmackDown pay-per-views we're going to be discussing. It's probably the lowest point in SmackDown when it comes to the Ruthless Aggression era. As we've talked about with Backlash, this is fresh off the WWE draft. So a lot of stars were kind of stripped from SmackDown and sent to Raw.
Oh, yeah.
And they did, looking back at this now, this was a very experimental phase for SmackDown, but they really just shot themselves in the foot with a lot of people. And we're going to be talking about that a lot because this is, it's really sad. The people that we talk about on this show, they're going to be dead and gone by the summertime. And this show takes place in May.
Yeah, so keeping in mind, this is a SmackDown without a Chris Benoit at this point. This is a SmackDown without an Edge at this point. Both of them have gone to Raw. This is a SmackDown that should have had Triple H for all intents and purposes, but he did not want to work on Tuesdays, as Paul Heyman would infamously quote. And part of this was not SmackDown's fault either. Like, they were expecting to have Brock Lesnar, like, for years and years and years, but he was long gone. So they were left with a pretty
improvising.
Yeah, they were kind of improvising. There was a kayfabe trade that went down. Triple H was sent back to Raw in favor of Booker T and the Dudley Boys. A humongous trade over to SmackDown. I mean, we'll talk more about them, which we'll get into.
Perfect segue.
Yeah, let's talk
Perfect
actually
segue
first.
Into this first match, yeah.
First of all, there's not a whole lot of redeeming qualities about Judgment Day 2004. One praise that I can give it is the freaking set. This is probably one of the best pay-per-view sets of all time, unironically speaking. They built a fucking graveyard in the Staples Center, literally speaking. Like, you have freaking gigantic Undertaker-style crosses hanging from the rafters. Judgment Day in a tombstone is on fire. It's like, oh, it's so great.
Yeah, like you said, emanating live from Los Angeles in the famous Staples Center, we open up this show with the freshly turned heel Dudley Boys taking on RVD and Rey Mysterio. Now, how did this match come about? Like Zack said, Triple H was drafted to SmackDown, but he was traded back to Raw in favor for the Dudley Boys and Booker T. Paul Heyman, right before leaving SmackDown as the general manager, and we'll be talking about the shift in general managers at this time later in the show, not even that far into the show. He wanted to light a fire underneath the Dudley Boys and Booker T, basically saying, you know, come join the dark side. The Dudleys and Booker did join. They did turn heel in that process, but RVD did not want to turn heel. And a heel RVD would have been weird, but RVD has basically just recruited some help in Rey Mysterio. And here we go. We have this makeshift tag team match. And that's how we got to this point. Not a lot of meat on this bone when it comes to
basically, the Dudley Boys came over to SmackDown, and Paul Heyman was the general manager, right? Like last I checked, Paul Heyman was GM of SmackDown. So how in the hell did he lose this position to Kurt Angle? Like, this is something I have never filled in the gaps.
I will fill that gap for you, my friend.
Okay.
During the draft lottery, Paul Heyman was drafted to Raw, and Eric Bischoff said, "Oh, if you're going to be a part of Raw, maybe you can be my little errand boy. You can go get me coffee. You can carry my bags for me." So Paul Heyman quit. Monday Night Raw.
How did he end up back on SmackDown?
That is a very good point. I guess he was there just to inaugurate the Dudleys and Booker as freshly turned heels, but
what was the point of moving Paul Heyman over to Raw just to have him like quit and have him just go right back to SmackDown? Why not just have him keep the GM position?
Like, yeah, I don't know the logistics of it. I think Paul Heyman was still head writer of SmackDown at this point, and they didn't want him to be an on-air role anymore. And we would see Paul Heyman later on in the year, but that's not a good thing to behold. But for now, Kurt Angle is the general manager, and we will be talking about him and his position and his horrific accident right after this match. But
just a few moments, yeah.
Again,
but
this is a makeshift tag team thrown together because these are two popular baby faces, and they're going up against these badass, the greatest tag team of all time, like I
basically
said, in the Dudley Boyz.
Again, Tomas, we've done over 90 of these, and how many opening matches have featured the Dudley Boyz? Like,
probably
how many
of them?
Like,
probably
at least half of these podcasts, I feel like, have had a Dudley in the opener. Which is
not to jump ahead a little, but I could have swore that this was for the tag team titles because I know RVD and Rey Mysterio do capture the tag team titles.
It was not.
There is a tag team title match in the show, and it's going to be even worse than this. Not to say this match was bad, but it was just your typical opener. It's like, you know, as a kid, you see the duo of RVD and Rey Mysterio and think, how cool is that? Two of my favorite wrestlers joining forces. But you look back as an adult, and you just think they really had nothing better to do for these guys.
Yeah, I thought it was fun as a kid. But this, pretty much watching it, I hate saying it, this is probably the best wrestled match on this show. And it was 3.25 stars, an above average SmackDown match. Basically, the crowd was
even being generous. There is one funny backstory about one of RVD and Mysterio's tag team moves that they execute. So what RVD does is he puts Mysterio in a wheelbarrow and they do a double leg drop. That would be called the 420. And RVD infamously explains in an interview that the way that he was able to get Vince to approve this is that Vince wanted to know what 420 stood for. And RVD said, 4 legs, 20 toes.
Yep.
That's the match. I mean, that's the move. That's the move.
That's a
because Vince,
it went right over his head. He didn't get it. But you know, that's cool. That's cool. That's a way to make it fun. The Dudleys, there were like 2 big heat segments in this match. Mysterio obviously took the big brunt of it as the smaller guy, and the crowd was very much into Rey Mysterio. So I feel like this was the wrong choice for this story, in all honesty, because this is in SoCal. Rey Mysterio is a SoCal boy, and he was the one that was being put into this angle. Basically, the whole idea was the Dudley Boyz were beating the shit out of Van Dam 2-on-1, and he needed help. So Mysterio is the electrifying equalizer, basically.
Yeah, like I said, not a lot of meat on this bone when it comes to build, and not really much of this match. Near the end of the match, they do pull off a really cool move where RVD launches Rey Mysterio onto Devon Dudley, and he executes a Hurricane Rana, and that's near the end of the match. The match ends where they're able to get the heat back, and RVD hits Mysterio hits a double 619 onto the Dudley Boyz. RVD hits the 5-star frog splash onto Devon, and RVD and Mysterio win. This was the wrong choice. I understand they wanted to go over. Big crowd reaction, but you just turned the Dudley Boyz heel, and they are going to be 2 of the biggest heels on SmackDown, not even going for the tag team titles right now. And you're going to have them in their first big match lose to 2 guys that were basically thrown together. It's just like you put this match on SmackDown, and the Dudleys should have went over. That's what this was a SmackDown you paid. This was a 3-hour SmackDown that you had to pay $40 for.
I mean, it's probably worse than a 2-hour SmackDown, in all honesty. I
just started listening to Kurt Angle's podcast, and he was going over. What basically Angle does on his podcast is he will review some of his classic matches, whether they be on TV and pay-per-view. And this past week, he reviewed a match I don't even remember happened. It was him, Rey Mysterio, and Chris Benoit in a triple threat match. And he said on that same SmackDown was Edge and Eddie Guerrero in the no disqualification match.
Yes,
so
sir.
You mean to tell me they can stack a SmackDown with 5-star classics, but then they make you pay for this?
Oh, man. It's so frustrating, you know, because that's one of my favorite SmackDown episodes of all time. Like, I know exactly which one you're talking about, but and then this is just, it's just dog shit after this. I mean, the wrestling in this match, they went 15 minutes also, which is very, very long for a thrown together match, but it wasn't badly worked. I have nothing against any of the four wrestlers that were in the match. The Dudleys were working very well as heels, and I feel like Bubba Ray, Bully Ray, whatever you want to call him, he is such a natural bad guy. And the way he was playing with this Los Angeles crowd in the Staples Center that night was just awesome. Really, really, really good. But
it was your typical opener. I think 3.25, maybe even too generous. I'm gonna give it 3.
So? Okay.
It's not a bad match, but it's not like I don't know. Just the booking of it just made me scratch my head. Especially now that the Dudleys are Paul Heyman guys. Going forward in a very weird storyline that we'll be covering in a couple of months. But it's gonna get really bad, and we're gonna continue with the bad.
It's gonna get even worse. Okay, so before this Kurt Angle promo, I do have to point out that this is where Josh Matthews and his boy band haircut interview Booker T in his locker room. He says he's been hearing weird noises in Booker T's locker room all night. And if you look in Booker T's locker room, there's a bunch of, like, fucking candles on the floor. I guess he's performing this ritual to get himself ready for The Undertaker. And the gimmick is that Booker has this little black bag of goodies. More on that bag later.
You know, I will say, though, this was a very solid promo by Booker. I could tell Booker was trying his hardest to get over in this. He's just basically going on about how he's better than the RVDs, he's better than the Rey Mysterios, and he's better than The Undertaker. A lot of
heel Booker T, mind you.
Yeah, and much more on that later. On kind of like Booker's, I don't even want to say his evolution, but like the new direction he's going into. Now being on SmackDown, I will say Booker and RVD were Raw staples. It did take some adjusting to see them on SmackDown, especially RVD.
Oh yeah. It'll take even more adjusting when you see what happens in 2005. But up next, we do have the music of Mr. Angle hitting over the PA system. General Manager Kurt Angle pops up out of this little cultivator. He is sitting in a wheelchair and pushed by his bodyguard, the newcomer, Luther Reigns. No relation to the Tribal Chief, mind you. This is our first time talking about Luther Reigns on this retro, but we're going to have a lot to say about him, that's for sure. Kurt, why is Kurt in the wheelchair? Do you mind catching people up?
Absolutely. So like I said, Heyman was drafted to Raw, but then for some reason showed up on SmackDown again. He was no longer the general manager, so you'll have to tell me what happened in real life, because this was another thing. Kurt Angle was the biggest star on SmackDown, one of the biggest stars on SmackDown. He is taken out of an in-ring role to be the new SmackDown general manager, as appointed by Mr. McMahon.
You know why he was picked is because Kurt Angle was injured. In his WrestleMania,
there we go. Another famous.
WrestleMania 20 match against Eddie Guerrero, he had another fractured vertebrae in his neck, and he went on to talk about that in his Talk Is Jericho appearance. I've seen that Eddie Angle match at WrestleMania 20, which we've talked about many times. I still have not picked out the exact point where Kurt Angle got hurt in that match. But lo and behold,
Angle literally broke his freaking neck like 4 or 5 times for us, and he didn't have to, but he did that for us. So this was a really bad time.
Stubborn man.
Yeah, very bad time for Angle to be injured, considering that the talent roster on SmackDown was pretty stacked at this point. But like I said, Angle is the general manager of SmackDown. The Big Show has been going on he's been on a rager. Basically, he lost to the United States Championship, and he was on the cusp of losing his job. So he goes on a tyrant, and he is threatening to throw Torrie Wilson off this like 10-foot ledge. Kurt Angle comes in to save Torrie Wilson, but in the process of that, Big Show lifts up Angle in one of the most terrifying spots I remember as a kid and throws him off the ledge. I remember Big Show doing it, and then they pan the camera over. Angle is basically dead, and there is blood coming up from the back of his head.
His leg is contorted in a weird pretzel fashion, too. It was a disgusting image. And so keeping in mind, the Big Show is gone, suspended without pay. Another name taken off of SmackDown's roster.
I think that was happening too, because Big Show's weight was really getting out of control, and basically WWE sent him home to go and try and lose some of that weight. This was unfortunately a downward spiral in Big Show's life and his career. So many stars, a lot of the staples on SmackDown were not here for this time. So
Kurt, Angle injured, Big Show suspended, Brock Lesnar gone from the company. That's 3 big names right there.
Moved to Raw.
Yeah, Benoit and Edge, Raw.
So in an infamous promo on SmackDown that I really liked, I like how Angle made this reference. So if you grew up watching SmackDown, SmackDown is known for being on free cable television. So ever since all the way up until they got picked up by Sci-Fi and USA for a short period, and now they're back on free cable television. You know, watching UPN, you get a lot of those public access shows that nobody watches. They're only in your area unless they, make a big deal about it. There was a home video show. I think it was called I Almost Died, or I think it was something like that, like How I Almost Died. And it was a bunch of clips of people. About. Yeah, it was a bunch of clips of people just like in near-death situations, and they would tell their story. Angle was cutting the promo in the ring in the wheelchair, and he was saying, I was paralyzed. You know that show they put on UPN, I Almost Died? Well, I should be on that show because I almost died. It's just like Angle referencing basically a cable access show. I don't know how many areas this show was put in, but it's, it's like,
and honestly,
you're homesick as a kid. You're just going to watch this every on public access.
I think this was also really beneficial for Kurt to really like hone in on his promo skills for a while. Because this promo he cut on the Staples Center is just, it's the cheapest of heat you can imagine. He takes a shot at the late great Kobe Bryant in this little tirade here. And he says that he sees too many fans of Eddie Guerrero, and he's looking forward to seeing JBL defeat him for the WWE title. We'll talk about him in a bit. But he's basically like, when JBL beats Eddie for the title, I expect you fans here in LA to do what you do best. Riot!
Angle was the best.
I'm working on the Kurt impression, which is why when the show is over, I'm getting the heck out of this town, because when I'm gone, I hope you people get the biggest earthquake in history.
Angle was so good at getting heat, not just from like insulting the fans, but just like picking out really touchy subjects.
Mm-hmm. Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, he was not scared to basically push the envelope on what he could get away with saying on TV, as shown in an infamous promo in 2006 that we're not going to reference for another couple years.
Nope.
But Angle is basically saying that, but does Angle want to blame the 7-foot giant who threw him off a ledge on his injury? No.
Of course not.
He wants to blame Torrie Wilson for getting him into that
because
predicament.
The American hero had to go save her. Captain America turns into Peacemaker here, and he's like, nah, I'm going to blame the chick now.
Yeah, so he forces Torrie Wilson to come out to the ring. Apparently she had a match schedule that I didn't know.
She did.
And he basically says, and it's weird. So Angle says that Torrie Wilson has to win her match tonight or else she is fired.
Yes, and that match,
she's going one-on-one.
One-on-one with Dawn Marie. Yes, absolutely. This is a match that we have talked about a couple of times.
Yeah. An old rival of Wilson's, like we talked about a couple years ago, involved infamously with the Al Wilson storyline. And here we are now, just a thrown together match on pay-per-view. They're kind of not even reviving the rivalry. They're just putting them out there. And this old rivalry is kind of overshadowed with the fact that Torrie has to win this match or she's fired.
Yeah, and that was the big thing, because if that stipulation wasn't in here, this crowd would not care about this. They really would.
And even then, nothing against Torrie Wilson. She's a Hall of Famer for a reason. Nothing against Dawn Marie. She is an ECW legend, but this was a nothing match.
Yeah. These two had better matches with the Jerry Springer, Al Wilson material. Unfortunately, it's sad that I got to say that, but I mean,
it's like,
dude, it's true.
No build, no heat, stipulation that overshadows the entire rivalry. It reminds me of Capital Punishment in 2011, where CM Punk and Rey Mysterio were just thrown on the show with absolutely no heat. Two people that feuded, had a blood rivalry in, a year prior, I think. And here they are just being thrown on as filler. And that's what this felt like. But to a much smaller degree.
They tried. They had some nice little neck breakers in there. Torrie Wilson had a good neck breaker, deceptively. But yeah, 6 minutes, Torrie Wilson pins Dawn with a backslide. It's really
half a star.
Yeah. Unfortunate that I have to say half a star as well, but like, Yeah.
Yeah,
Nothing
it was
matched.
there. I feel like they put the stipulation there just to get the fans to somewhat care, but you know. And then, okay, so here we go. So this is my biggest issue with this pay per view. I
Here we go.
understand with the single branded pay per views, you have to have your big marquee matches with some filler in between. You know, it's like a boxing fight. You're paying for the marquee match. You're paying for the De La Hoya versus the Pacquiao. You're paying for the Mayweather fight, but you know, you're not going to pay $70 for one fight.
No.
You know, they got to have some content sprinkled in there. But in this, it was just jobber match after jobber match after jobber match, and this is the prime example of that. It is Scotty to Hotty going one-on-one with the debuting Mordecai.
So let's talk about him for a minute because we're not really going to have a whole lot of chances to. Mordecai was a recent OVW call-up to the SmackDown brand. One of a few, actually, around this time. Luther Reigns was another one, but we'll have more chances to talk about him. Mordecai was basically, his gimmick was that he was like this religious zealot who was all decked out in white. And he would come out to the ring and fire would like shoot up all around him, Gangrel style. And he would talk about the unwashed masses and all that stuff. And he would have this vocabulary. You know,
he had a crucifix that he would, you know, stab into the stage and fire would go up. They put a lot into this guy's presentation. And the theme song was cool. And I just look at this and I literally, my mind started wandering. And I did some research and I just thought, what happened? I mean,
so I guess what happened, and we'll get into this at the Great American Bash review.
It's like we don't want to spill everything right now, but just
not yet.
You look at this, and you know the match is nothing, but he wasn't the worst worker in the world. I'm not going to sit here and say this was the greatest debut of all time.
No,
and they should have put the world title on this guy, and this guy should still be here. But it's just like,
but listen,
you go into all that trouble,
As a 7-year-old kid, listening to that theme song and seeing his presentation, this guy terrified me when I was a little boy. And seeing like, oh man, who's gonna beat him? You know, like a lot of people like were, you know, circulating the rumor that he was being built up for the Undertaker eventually, which would have been, you know, like pretty much your heaven and hell almost, like, you know, your big like spooky dudes feud on SmackDown. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but
you go back into like the 80s and the 90s and you see that like and pardon me for not remembering his name, rest in peace, the guy who played Zeus in No Holds Barred. They brought that guy in specifically to feud with Hulk Hogan. But you bring, or you know, the Giant Gonzalez, who was specifically brought in to feud with the Undertaker. Yeah, you look at that marquee match on paper, it looks really cool. It looks cool in concept, but after you're done with that, characters like that have a shelf life. You can't really do anything with them. And it's unfortunate because you can't put all of this time and effort and money and, you know, production value, and you can't mess around because these are people at the end of the day.
And the vignettes as well. Yeah. The vignettes were terrifying for Mordecai. And he goes in there, literally murders Scotty Too Hotty, who didn't really put up much offense in this, and the commentators are really trying hard to put over how dominant this guy looks. And my favorite spot of the match, I will tell you, was Scotty going for the worm, and Mordecai just pulling him by his stupid like biker shorts and like hanging him up on the rope. And I'm like, thank you for not selling the worm. Yeah, at least you got that right.
It took them how long for somebody to figure out how to not lay there while Scotty Too Hotty takes 30 seconds to do a move?
Apparently Mordecai is a lot smarter than people gave him credit for. But
so going into the end of this match, it goes into another issue I have with these kind of matches. So, and WWE must have had a lot of faith in this guy because they gave him Scott Hall's finisher, basically a razor's edge. And Michael Cole even said that on commentary, and that takes a lot of balls to take a guy like this that just debuted and give him an all-timers finishing move.
Oh yeah.
So here's the issue I have with these kind of matches, and it's something I've noticed recently, even in WWE today, especially with NXT. Debut matches are your first impression, and in my opinion, in your debut match, you need to catch the audience's attention. You need to really sell your offense, and you need to make it look good. If you're only given, and I know the match wasn't this short, but if you're only given like 2 minutes to sell yourself in the ring and your offense looks rushed and sloppy and, you know, not fun to watch, then
not even 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's like, how are you going to hook me in those minutes? And I'm going to bring up an example. I know not everybody may watch NXT right now, but Quincy Elliott. Quincy Elliott is a brand new gimmick and a brand new character they brought to NXT. He's flamboyant. He's fun. He has a lot of charisma. He has had 2 matches so far. And in his first match, it went like not even 2 minutes. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. His offense was sloppy. And when I see that, it doesn't make me look forward to watching him wrestle some more.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying Mordecai's offense was sloppy in this match, but when you're only given so much time, and if your moves aren't going to make me go, oh, then why should I care?
Very basic run-of-the-mill big man offense here. Nothing really like, too out of the ordinary, honestly. Like it's like
it's just so weird.
It's like Testa did this offense better, you know?
The transition into the finish is also something that really bothers me in squash matches or debut matches. It was literally just a clothesline and then into the finisher. And it's just like, I don't know. I wasn't really sold by this. I wasn't really sold by his offense, but again, the presentation, all the effort they put into this guy. And you know what? We're just going to spill the beans right now. Next 2 months in the Great American Bash is the last time you're going to see this guy on pay-per-view. And then probably a couple weeks later is the last time you're going to see him on TV.
Yep. Until he would turn up in WWE ECW in 2006, Tomas. Did you know this?
Oh,
did you know this?
I did.
Mordecai would eventually turn into Kevin Thorne the Vampire, which is interesting.
Yes, I did.
Thinking about it that way, but yeah.
So,
I mean, this is like I don't know, man. Like rating this match doesn't really feel fair. You know, I want to say like, okay, yeah, the presentation scared me as a little kid, but like nowadays I'm like, in hindsight, I know you're going nowhere. I know you're going absolutely nowhere, so why should I care?
What would happen to the Mordecai character, I want you to save for the Great American Bash, because I did some research on this, and it's actually interesting and sad at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we'll get into all those deets at the Great American Bash podcast.
And I hope you're enjoying this downhill ride, because it's going to get worse.
Next up is a match that I'm sure gave Tomas a stroke with him and his fandom of the random tag teams, my friends. That was an unintentional rhyme. For the WWE Tag Team titles, the champions are Rico and Charlie Haas. You heard me. You heard me, viewers. Rico and Charlie Haas. They're defending against the team of the one Billy Gunn and Hardcore Holly. A team that sounds like would be made on Jacked in 1999. Like,
so
no shit. Like, my word. What the hell?
I feel like this was WWE just trying so hard to recreate the oddball tag team kind of dynamic. So we've had some oddball tag teams in the past that have worked. Famously Booker T and Goldust. Famously Stone Cold Steve Austin and Dude Love. Famously The Rock and Mankind. Mm-hmm. You can get two oddballs together, and if they get organically over with the crowd, it's something amazing, you know?
So why was Charlie Haas teamed up with Rico? Is it because his partner was shipped off to Raw and they were looking for something to do? Like, Rico was... here, I'll tell you exactly what it was, actually. Just thinking about it. Rico was always accompanied to the ring by Miss Jackie Gata. Jackie Gata would end up becoming Charlie Haas's wife. So, there's a connection there.
So, this whole match is based off of homophobia.
Yep. That's what it
Rico
is
an extremely flamboyant gay man, but WWE would not say that he was a gay man. I don't know if Rico is gay in real life.
No way.
Props to him for being, for staying dedicated to the gimmick. Rico and Haas make their way to the ring, and it's really weird to see Rico and Jackie together because, they're trying to play off Rico as a gay man. They have like this runway, basically. It's like an arch.
They do.
They
It's like America's Next Top Model.
Yeah, and I will say this part did make me laugh. Haas goes up to go across the ramp, and Michael Cole and Taz start chanting his name.
Charlie. And Charlie's really hesitant to go up the runway.
Cole and Taz are just having a fucking ball with this match.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Haas doesn't go around there. Holly and Gunn make their way to the ring, and Holly decides to pose on the runway. I thought that was pretty funny.
And Billy Gunn goes around it.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, considering knowing these guys in real life. So the match starts, and again, this whole match is based off of homophobia. You've seen it with Goldust, you've seen it with other flamboyant characters. Not in today's wrestling because it's extremely insensitive, but like they don't want to lock up with Rico because they're scared they're going to get touched. It's basically the toxic masculinity of Gunn and Holly, which is weird considering Gunn's gimmick is Mr. Ass and he has a bunch of lips around his
tongue. And lest I forget, Rico was Billy and Chuck's stylist. How do they not call this back? How does Billy Gunn not enjoy this?
So
good gimmick.
They don't want to. Yeah, they don't want to lock up with Rico. They're doing the whole. Rico will put a backward waist lock on somebody. He'll start like thrusting on them, and Holly and Gunn want nothing to do with him. Rico is trying to, kiss his hand and put it on Billy Gunn's lips, and Billy Gunn wants nothing to do with that. And
again, Billy Gunn, the dude who like went through the commitment ceremony with Chuck Palumbo, and Rico was the officiant.
And then when
what is going on?
It's all business. It's funny. There's no room for flamboyance in professional wrestling. Adorable Adrian Street. Goldust. So many gimmicks. Adrian Adonis.
Billy and Chuck.
Drag queens in Lucha Libre in Mexico.
Billy and Chuck.
Yeah. Flamboyance has existed in professional wrestling since the age of dirt. So the fact that WWE was trying to pass off this homophobic shit in 2004, read your own history books, motherfuckers.
I did not think this match was going to make me as mad as it was. I thought it was just the callback, or lack of a callback with Billy Gunn. But
now, without that being said, if you kind of take the stick out of your ass and just watch the match for what it is funny at times.
Yeah. I found myself chuckling a few times. Hardcore Holly and Billy Gunn were, as random of a fucking tag team as that is. Like,
it's just, it was basically Rico's in the ring, a bunch of homophobic spots. When Haas is in the ring, it's all business. So Haas was taking the key for most of this match, but nothing really memorable here. It's just Gunn and Holly doing typical. And here's the thing, Gunn and Holly aren't even heels. They were just a team thrown together. They were heel by proxy, but they were just a team that was thrown together because I guess there's no other tag teams on SmackDown right
now. Dudley boys, what? Excuse me. So he goes, the finish of this match, I'll give them credit, was actually kind of creative. Bob Holly goes for an Alabama slam. Rico hits a really clean super kick, actually, onto Bob Holly, who falls to a sunset flip from Charlie Haas, who pins Hardcore Holly, and they retain the titles.
I hope you don't like this team too much. I hope they don't grow on you because very, very, not even that far in the future off, Rico and Haas would lose the tag team titles. Haas turns heel on Rico and steals Miss Jackie, and that's not even that. This is
not even a month later. The Dudley boys beat Charlie Haas and Rico for the titles on SmackDown.
And yeah, this was the failed experimental era of SmackDown. We already had a failed debut, and we had a failed experimental tag team right here. Breezango, these guys aren't.
No, not at all. Not even, no fashion files to be found here, that's for sure. We get a brief Undertaker and Paul Bearer promo. It's, the crowd pops for the dead man who has recently returned as of WrestleMania. But up next, Tomas, I'm sure, is one of your favorite matches on this card. I know it is.
And this is where I go from being, wow, there's some shit on this pay-per-view, to just straight up, okay, this is like the fourth gimmicky, stupid comedy spot match of the show for the Cruiserweight Championship. It is Chavo Guerrero challenging Jacqueline. I have no problem with Jacqueline. Jacqueline's fucking awesome. I have no problem with intergender wrestling. I want there to be more of intergender wrestling in today's wrestling. Impact Wrestling is the only promotion that does it. I have no problem with Jackie holding the Cruiserweight title because I thought that was cool as fuck. What I have a problem with is the whole fucking stigma of this rivalry. Ladies and gentlemen, we literally just went from homophobia to sexism.
Yep, we sure did.
So in this match, Jacqueline answered an open challenge for the Cruiserweight title against Chavo Guerrero, like not even a month ago, like 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
And Jacqueline beat Chavo, and the whole story is, ha, 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 Chavo got beat by a girl.
That's the whole gimmick.
Is it to beat Jacqueline? How insulting is it to beat Jacqueline in this position?
Well, and even worse, the whole gimmick behind this contest is that Chavo has to wrestle with one arm tied behind his back. And the idea is Chavo is cheating the entire match. Chavo Sr. is at ringside, continuously distracting this official. And Chavo continuously is undoing the tie job around his wrist, and he's hitting power bombs on Jacqueline. He eventually hits a gory bomb on her to regain the championship. Like,
let me ask you something. Let me tell you something. Actually, are you aware that 4 months prior we already had a comedy spot match involving a man and a woman, where the man was handicapped and the man still won by cheating?
This time, there's a title on the line. You remember that same pay-per-view with that stupid gimmick? It was Rey and Chavo in a classic for the Cruiserweight title. Like, oh my word.
One thing that really makes me mad about this match is, even as a kid growing up and going back and rewatching this over and over and over, I am still mad that they took the title off Jacqueline, because I think Jacqueline as the Cruiserweight champion in a serious Cruiserweight division would have been cool as fuck.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What else
that would have been fun. That would have been really
fun. There's no women's title on SmackDown. There's no women's title on SmackDown. There's no legit women's division. Jacqueline is a bona fide badass that was trained and rode, was a car buddies with the APA for years.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just going to have her in this insulting spot on the card. She has to constantly say that, oh, Chavo, you got beat by a girl. Jacqueline could kick my ass. And on commentary, Michael Cole on commentary says, yes, Jacqueline is a woman, but what?
Why do you need to say that? Who cares if she's a woman? What kid, like, if this were 2022, this gimmick would not be thrown around like this at all.
Jacqueline is a woman, but she knows what she's doing in the ring. Yeah, it's because she's a professional wrestler.
Yeah, no shit. It doesn't matter what her gender is.
Do you really, you think they just plucked her out of the crowd and she beat Chavo that way? And then Michael Cole makes another good point after the match. He said, yes, Chavo won the title, but he had to cheat by taking his arm out and had to have his dad help him.
Yeah.
And
Chavo.
Then to add insult to injury, Chavo Classic kicks Jacqueline in the ribs.
And then you never see Jacqueline on SmackDown again after this, by the way. That's it.
I'm going to give this match 0 stars.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, yeah, 0 stars. Like,
you wasted
not
Chavo's
good.
time, you wasted Jacqueline's time, you wasted our time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it looks like this next match looks like could potentially, help this pay-per-view a little bit. It is John Cena defending the United States Championship against the French phenom, Rene Dupree, who was just drafted over to SmackDown after the draft lottery, split off from La Resistance, but still has the same theme song. Is it just... I don't know if it's just me, but watching the build for this match and the hype package, for some reason, I was seeing a lot of similar things with MJF that I saw with Rene Dupree, just in his mannerisms and the cafe and the way he carried himself.
I get what you mean. So they put a lot of backing into Rene Dupree when it came to SmackDown, which I really appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
The build for this match was a hell of a lot better than the actual match we got.
It was a fun build.
Wilson, she's getting into a lot of shit on SmackDown. Like, she's invited on to Renee's Cafe, which was his very short-lived TV segment. And Rene Dupree just fucking tears her down for no reason.
Yeah, you know why I remember this build so well? I had this on DVD, as you know, but I was a big fan of playing the SmackDown video games on the PS2. I was a big retro gamer. The original SmackDown versus Raw season mode, without fail, I always selected John Cena as my playable character. Always, always, always picked John Cena. And always the first storyline was trying to get the diva, Torrie Wilson in this case. And who was the angry boyfriend in my way? Rene Dupree. Always. Yep. It was this match right here at Judgment Day of all places. It's crazy.
It's crazy. to go back and think that the video games are writing better storylines than the actual product.
Yeah. Unifying the championships in SmackDown versus Raw after 2 years. But anyway,
I don't want to go into a tangent of SmackDown versus Raw storylines, but there's some crazy ones out there. Go look them up on YouTube. They're wild.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know. I loved every bit of them. That might be another topic for another time. But
so they're really trying to build Dupree as a solid mid-carder here, and I really appreciated it. I liked his presentation. The theme song fit with him. He had his faithful companion Fifi out with him to the ring. And have you ever heard of Fifi Gate?
Fifi Gate.
Fifi Gate is the theory that it was not the same dog every SmackDown. That they actually went out of their way to get a different French poodle.
It absolutely was not the same dog. There's no way it was. Absolutely no way it was the same dog.
You look back into the classic animal companions of the wrestling era. Jake the Snake Roberts is his snake. Same snake every time. Matilda the Bulldog with the British Bulldogs. Same dog every time. Frankie the Parrot with Coco Beware. Same parrot every time. Fifi in 2004 was a different dog every time.
Oh, yeah. There's no way it was the same. Rene Dupree, John Cena.
Back, Fifi. Bring back Fifi.
Well, that means you have to bring back Rene Dupree. Are you willing to do that?
Bring back Fifi. Just sign Fifi to a contract.
Just sign Fifi to a contract. No Rene Dupree.
Dupree runs a podcast nowadays, and if he takes mailbag questions, I'm just gonna say, "Where's Fifi?
Where's Fifi, Rene? Where is he?" But I mean, John Cena. Here's my issue with this match. First of all, I love that they're trying to build up the 20-year-old Rene Dupree here. I really, really love that they're trying to build him up as a legitimate threat. But come on. Did you really honestly believe that he was going to beat John Cena here? There was no way in hell, especially since John Cena had just won the U.S. title. There was no way he was losing it this early.
Exactly. He just won the title. You could tell, even here, that John Cena was being prepped to be the biggest star in the company. Mm-hmm. Dupree was thrust into this title picture way too early. You could have built him up a lot better more before giving him this title shot. And then maybe, hell, you don't know, maybe rack up some wins. They had the gall to call Rene Dupree the French Phenom. Like he was ever going to measure up to the Undertaker in any way. You put a lot of pressure on this guy in his first pay-per-view match, and I think that has a lot of reason of why he did not succeed. Dupree was not a bad talker. He was not a bad wrestler. He had potential, but they put way too much pressure on this guy.
Oh yeah. The match itself, 10 minutes. I don't think it would have been fair to ask Rene to go out there and work a 15-minute match with John Cena at that point. But it was, the match was fine.
It was fine. The build was better than the match.
Yeah, the match itself, I mean, there were some good spots in there, but this is not going to be an overly memorable U.S. title match, rather. Rene Dupree does start the French tickler pretty early on, and Tomas, as he was watching the show, texts me the infamous Taz French tickler tune, the jingle that he sings at Royal Rumble 2005.
Let's just say the French tickler would not have been as quote-unquote over as it was if Taz wasn't there to sing that song every single time. I remember it being so forgettable that as I was watching this match, and even growing up, I was like, okay, he does the French tickler. What the fuck does he do after that? He was trying to do a running Stone Cold-esque forearm, but I don't ever remember him connecting.
Drops an elbow and completely misses. John Cena tries the FU, but it's countered into a neck breaker. Dupree tries, he's trying some good little moves in here. But John Cena hits one FU/attitude adjustment and retains the U.S. title. Pins Rene Dupree clean in the middle in 10 minutes.
It's shitty because Dupree was basically just the evil foreigner.
Yeah.
He was the evil foreigner. He was, and I know this is like not even comparable with like apples to oranges. Rene Dupree was Sergeant Slaughter to John Cena's Hulk Hogan. Except they weren't main eventing WrestleMania.
He was the Miro to John Cena's John Cena. Oh, excuse me. 2 3/4 stars, maybe a little bit generous. I think it's more realistic to say 2.5. Yeah. I would agree.
It was
with
a
that.
match.
I mean,
he was an obstacle in Cena's way. This wouldn't be the end for Dupree in the United States title picture, but we're gonna tell you this right now. He's gonna be dead in the water within 3 months. So
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he's dead
gimmicks?
in the water, but like, yeah, he
would never go near mid card to upper mid card.
Nope.
This is the closest he's gonna get.
Nope. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
So we have 3 failed gimmicks so far. You ready for a 4th one?
Kenzo Suzuki.
We get a promo package for Kenzo Suzuki, a Japanese star who is making his way to the States to make his WWE debut. You know what? We're just going to say this now. We're going to talk about Kenzo Suzuki a total of 1 time on pay-per-view.
No. He was on pay-per-view so much more than that. Great American Bash. More? No Mercy for sure. Armageddon
No
for
Mercy.
sure. Royal Rumble. He was in the Rumble match. Believe it or not.
Holy shit.
Yeah. No. We're going to have plenty of chances to talk about Kenzo, and I'm very excited.
We will say this. They are running vignettes for Kenzo Suzuki in May. We're just going to say it now. This gimmick's going to be dead in the water by July.
Born in the USA. Woo!
This guy, you've heard of guys crashing and burning. This guy doesn't even get off the fucking runway before he bursts into flames.
The Bronze Warrior from the land of the rising sun just goes up in smoke. Man, oh man. And I thought Kenzo Suzuki was going to be cool too.
Me too. I was intimidated by that promo. I was intimidated by the vignettes they would run on SmackDown.
I was intimidated by the theme song. It was giving me like Yokozuna vibes.
He's angrily screaming at the camera in Japanese, and that was terrifying to me. And then he's dead in the water by July.
Let's just say that
2 fucking months.
Let's just say that Yokozuna, this guy ain't.
No.
Yeah.
And he's another guy. I don't want to jump into it too soon, but he wasn't bad on the ring. He had potential. No. But Vince looked at him and fucking laughed.
Born in the USA. Woo! We'll get there. Okay. So you want to talk about this next match, Tomas, a little bit?
Next, we have a special attraction match. It is Booker T going 1-on-1 with The Undertaker.
How special of an attraction is this, really? Is this a rare appearance by The Undertaker? You're telling me that this is the only time I'm going to talk about an Undertaker match in 2004?
Apparently, according to Michael Cole. So this started a really cool trope. This was actually the beginning of a really cool trope for The Undertaker. Basically, if you're a SmackDown star gaining momentum and you have the gall to call yourself the best, those are fighting words for The Undertaker. Booker T had just turned heel on SmackDown, and he's running roughshod on anybody. And he says he's the greatest SmackDown star in history. You might as well have just called out The Undertaker. You might as well have just insulted his mother. Because here comes The Undertaker to defend that title, being the greatest star in SmackDown history. Booker T wants a way to defeat The Undertaker. So he goes to a fortune teller, and the fortune teller tells him that he needs to brew a special concoction to get rid of this shadow that's over him. And he needs a dirt from a grave with a man with no name. So Booker goes to the graveyard, he gets this dirt. Who knows what else is in this recipe, but that is the main ingredient in this recipe. The Undertaker had destroyed the FBI in a 2-on-1 handicap match, and Booker came out after the match, and he hit Undertaker with the urn. The next week on SmackDown, Booker challenged the FBI to a handicap match, and he had the special bag with him that gave him these mystical powers, but the FBI was beat to shit by the Undertaker.
Fucking Nunzio wearing a neck brace.
Johnny Stamboli's all beat up and he's bandaged up. Booker T takes them out, no issue. So Booker has this, he has this, what's that word I'm looking for? Like a placebo effect on him. Where he thinks
it's supposed to basically give him like, I don't even know how to describe this. It's almost like he's like purposely injecting himself with a spider bite. Trying to give him the the Peter Tingle.
It's like that feeling where it's like, again, it's a placebo effect. I'm going to give you a special pill that's going to make you all strong and powerful. And now that you've psyched yourself out, you think it's working. But in reality, I just gave you a sugar pill. It does absolutely nothing. Yeah, it is.
So stupid, man. He's rubbing the bag all over himself.
as the Undertaker is making his way to the ring, which is a really cool visual. It's really cool to see Paul Bearer back on his side. And Michael Cole is saying this is a special treat for the SmackDown crowd. The Undertaker does not make a lot of appearances, and this is probably one of the only times we're going to see Taker.
No! Bullshit!
Great American Bash.
Bullshit!
No Mercy. Survivor Series. Armageddon. Spoiler alert.
Royal Rumble. I'm not done. No Way Out. WrestleMania 21. Great American Bash 05. There's so many more Undertaker matches. Armageddon 05. No Mercy 05. Want to keep going?
We're going to be talking about The Undertaker for years and years to come on almost every single pay-per-view. Shut the fuck up, Michael Cole.
He's not a Brock Lesnar or a tribal chief right now. Undertaker's a full-timer. So get a grip, Michael Cole.
We would not get part-time Undertaker for another 7 years.
Think about that for a second. But this match was...
then, when he became part-time Taker, he wrestled for another 9 years.
This match was very, very boring, wasn't it?
It was dull.
It was one of the most random concoctions for a semi-main I think I've ever seen. God bless Booker T, because he tried his best with the stuff he was given. And The Undertaker's a general.
The best way to describe this match was an effort was made.
An effort was made, but these two are not a really good match for each other, are they? No.
They tried to tell a story, but it fell apart.
Yeah, well, it was put together pretty piss poor as well. You remember that little concoction you were talking about? Booker T uses it like halfway through the match. Doesn't even play into the finish. He throws the dirt at the Taker's eyes. He no-sells it. And then they work like a whole other 10 minutes after that. Like,
it was dirt.
Who put this match
Booker
together?
T had a bag of dirt. This special concoction that he had to get special ingredients for that was going to make him all-powerful was a bag of fucking dirt.
My goodness. Undertaker tries the last ride. But Booker just gets out of it.
Booker T would have been better off if he would have used Mr. Fuji's powder just to throw in Taker's face.
You know what he would have been better off doing? Stealing the fucking urn. How about that? You know?
But he gives CM Punk credit. He did it.
Again.
He almost beat The Undertaker.
Ironically speaking, something CM Punk did better, number one, and something else the SmackDown versus Raw video games did better. Remember that crazy storyline in 2006 where you had to steal The Undertaker's urn to beat him in a Buried Alive match? Because I sure do. I sure remember that. But yeah, good times. This match was not a good time. Undertaker hits a choke slam, hits Booker with a tombstone. The match went 12 minutes. It's 2 stars. 2 stars is kind of being generous, though. I don't know. I didn't really like this.
It was there. I like Taker and Booker. At least it wasn't between two guys I don't like.
Yeah. No, I like these guys too, but they're just not a good match with each other. They really aren't.
Now, I was thinking about it, and I was super close to saying Booker's concoction could have played into the end of the match, and Booker could have got a cheap victory over Undertaker because Undertaker's not going to be hurt by a loss. It would have launched Booker T into the stratosphere. But considering the next program Undertaker's going to be going into, if anybody says Undertaker doesn't do the job for anybody, they are wrong. Because Taker's going to be putting over some people this year. And I don't think putting Taker on a losing streak would have made him look very good. So it is what it is. It was there.
Keeping in mind, Big Evil just returned, too. So I don't think he was going to be eating a loss at the next pay-per-view after he returned. All due respect to Booker,
but
I don't think the dead man was going to be losing at his next pay-per-view at all.
Considering where Taker's next step goes on in the year 2004, give him a win here.
Yeah,
because
plus the Undertaker no-sold the concoction that was a big part of this story, so why even bother doing it? You're just wasting our time, Yeah.
The build was all right. I thought Booker was very entertaining during the build. Booker did his damnness with the promos. Booker he's a Hall of Famer for a reason. I love Booker T. And here he is just getting screwed over again because he's going to go into an interesting program over the summer, but I don't know how you go wrong with Booker T.
He wouldn't touch the WWE Championship, would he? I don't think so.
No.
You know, that would have been a nice consolation prize for putting over Triple H at WrestleMania. But, okay. Speaking of the WWE Championship, here we go. I'm challenging Eddie Guerrero, Maggle. You can tell I'm tired because I wrestled a match against Eddie Guerrero before this podcast here.
Here we go. It is a debuting gimmick.
Yep.
Bradshaw is no more.
Mm-hmm.
John Bradshaw Layfield. John Bradshaw Layfield was the last attempt by Bradshaw. Before getting fired, WWE straight up told him, you have one last chance or you're out of here. Gone is the long black hair. Gone is the handlebar mustache. In is the cowboy hat. In are the suits. In is the Wolf of Wall Street, basically. JBL is a self-made millionaire.
Not even. He's not like, you know, he's not doing Quaaludes or anything like that. He's legitimately presenting himself like a Ronald Reagan almost. Like, this is crazy looking at him and this, like, complete digression here.
It's a transformation for the ages. And what is this JBL character doing?
JBL is deporting Mexican people because he is like, if you want me to just cut right to the chase, that's what he was doing. He's using hand sanitizer before it was popular during the pandemic. He's like shaking people's hands in the audience. He's kissing babies like a true politician would. You know, JBL is presenting himself like a politician, like a Wall Street legitimate politician. With the 10-gallon cowboy hat, the signature white cowboy hat, he's got the pristine suits on. It's great. It's a great presentation.
Texas Longhorns on.
Oh no! No limos yet. No limos yet. That would come later. He doesn't come out in the limo here. But the limo would come. But how he gets this title shot is actually fairly bizarre, to say the least. Kurt Angle, as the SmackDown GM, does not like Eddie Guerrero. And he says that he is going to present the Kurt Angle Great American Memorial Award to a certain SmackDown superstar, and they're going to get a title shot at Judgment Day. And the leading candidate for the crowd is John Cena, which doesn't really make any sense because a babyface versus a babyface match, come on. You know, why would you do that?
I would have loved to see Cena and Eddie Guerrero. Probably not here, but like in a year.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we never would have gotten that match properly on pay-per-view. They would wrestle in a parking lot brawl on SmackDown, but they didn't have a full-on pay-per-view feud, unfortunately. So the reason why JBL comes out of nowhere and gets this award is because he plays this video package on the Titantron of him at the border legitimately throwing, like, you can put two and two together. With JBL's character, like, you can imagine what he was doing at the border. And Kurt Angle...
There are innocent people trying to make lives better for themselves, and Eddie Guerrero, JBL is chasing them off, and he is kicking them in the ass, and it is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. JBL was really pushing the boundaries, but you know what? That's how you get heat.
Maybe one of the craziest things probably one of the craziest things you've seen on WWE television since the Pillman got a gun angle. Really pushing the boundaries.
But that's how you get heat. That's how you fucking get heat. And that's what I liked about JBL. This guy, even in his first initial run, was doing dastardly things to get heat.
Probably the apex of this feud and this build was at a house show in Eddie Guerrero's hometown in El Paso, Texas. Eddie invited his mom into the ring. JBL beats the crap out of Eddie right in front of his mother. JBL just places a hand on her shoulder, gives Mrs. Guerrero a heart attack. A mild heart attack at that, but it was...
For real.
For real. Yeah.
For absolute real.
She freaks the F out because JBL,
The story is...
What a villain.
And if anybody... Yeah. So Eddie's mom was fully aware that this was going to happen in the ring. She didn't know JBL was going to put a hand on her. And the minute he did, she knew she was supposed to have a heart attack, but she legit gave herself one.
Yeah.
Ugh. Apparently, the original plan was for JBL to clothesline her.
Yeah. I don't think JBL would have wanted to do that. I think he would have felt guilty after doing it backstage.
And you want to hear the craziest thing?
What?
It was Eddie and Chavo's idea.
Yeah.
It was Eddie and Chavo's idea to get Eddie's mom involved.
Yeah. Which...
Fucking wild.
Crazy, this build. to get over two guys who were in the mid card of WWE for the longest time. And I remember seeing this match as a main event thinking, Eddie Guerrero, love him, but he's defending against Bradshaw? I wasn't used to that.
If you would have told me
it took some
in
adjusting.
2001, if you would have told me in 2001 that Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero was going to be facing Bradshaw in the main event of a pay-per-view for the WWE Championship, I would have said you're crazy.
No way. I would have said absolutely not. But Eddie Guerrero comes out, stares freaking icicles through JBL. He stands on the top rope for a while, and these two get to brawling. And it's really
this match.
It's really physical.
Fucking excellent. Stiff as hell. Eddie is a technical master. JBL is a stiff motherfucker with his strikes. JBL does not get the credit he deserves. I understand people don't like JBL as a person. I understand back in the scenes, he's a bully. But I'm going to say this right now. I'm going to get shit for it. I don't like JBL.
I do too.
And how crazy is it that we are talking about JBL's first pay-per-view match in this persona, and he just made his return to WWE TV 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, and he's getting a WWE title shot. His first pay-per-view in this gimmick. There's a lot to be said about JBL later on in this retro, but we're going to keep praising
JBL, him. Despite JBL's, I want to say his stances, he's actually not a terrible human being.
Yeah.
Eddie Guerrero is his best friend. He is 100% supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement. He was 100% pro-mask during the pandemic. He is not a terrible person, despite being a conservative Republican.
Yeah, not to get political or anything on here.
Yeah, no. But, I feel like I just made a bunch of new enemies by saying that. I'm probably going to get fact-checked. This is what I've seen from, just like his public appearances. And
JBL also presented himself like a lot of the recent presidents in our history as well. Crazy.
So for the next 5 years, this gimmick is it's gonna personify his entire career.
Yeah. Oh, and he would be absolutely even just as vicious in the ring as he would be if he were in the APA. Ron Simmons, long retired, so Bradshaw is ready to just skyrocket up the card here.
Again, the strikes, the clotheslines, the boots to the face, the fall-away slams. This guy is fucking stiff.
Yeah. Speaking of stiff, we get the one spot that this pay-per-view is known for, Tomas. I'll never forget it. Watching it the first time live on pay-per-view. It scarred me.
Yeah, so Eddie Guerrero is getting his heat. He's getting the babyface heat. He's shimmying. He's getting riled up with the crowd. He hits a few shots on JBL, and then he turns around to run to the ropes, and he knocks the referee out.
Yes.
Which just opens up the possibilities, and for one of the most vicious and sick. This spot is so bad that when I started up this pay-per-view, I didn't get one. I didn't get two. I got 3 parental warnings.
Yeah.
This is rated TVMA. This is being presented in its original form. And again, they were saying there's very bloody depictions in the show. It was basically WWE knows how awful this is, and they're just saying, just give you a heads up.
One of
this pay-per-view is fucking gnarly.
One of the most massive, loudest chair shots to the head of all time. JBL hits Eddie square in the dome, bends the chair over his skull. This pay-per-view was in Los Angeles. You could probably have heard this chair shot over in Orlando, for all I know. My word. Eddie took it right in the freaking head, and he blades buckets. Like, this is, like, apparently Eddie had cut too deep.
Yeah.
Eddie did, JBL, I actually do have a quote from him. Where is it? Eddie made what was known backstage as a business blade, which is a big one, but Eddie took it way too far. Eddie actually severed an artery that night. And man, that blood was just gushing out of his head like a garden hose.
Like a fucking faucet. And it does all over the ringside, all over the ring. Michael Cole has a beautiful quote, and he says, "It's like an art canvas in the ring. But that's not paint. That's blood."
Yeah, that quote I thought was a little bit like, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe a little bit too forced in the analogy, but
I get what you mean, but it was just in the moment. It's crazy. I think this match was already good, but it kicks into a whole new gear. Like, they wanted blood in this match, but they knew they did not want this much blood. And if you think JBL doesn't let up after this. He is constantly hitting Eddie Guerrero in the face. He takes him around the side of the ring. He hits him in the face with the steel steps.
Hits him with the clothesline from hell. Hits him with the clothesline from hell multiple times. And Eddie is still kicking out. Eddie is finishing this match, whether we like it or not. There's two referees.
One of the coolest visuals in the match, JBL is hitting Eddie Guerrero, and he is just Latino heat charisma all the way and just covered in the crimson mask of blood.
It is a crimson mask. It is literally the crimson mask.
Fucking wild.
Like,
how Eddie Guerrero did not faint.
Here's the thing, though. If you just looked at this man in the face, you would not have been able to tell it was Eddie Guerrero. But just in the way he was presenting himself, the shimmying and all that, and, like, Latino heating it up, like, that, Eddie Guerrero was in there. He was sure in there.
1 week ago on AEW Dynamite, they had to stop a world title match because Hangman Adam Page took a clothesline wrong and he got concussed.
Man.
16 years prior, Eddie Guerrero is bleeding buckets.
Mm-hmm.
And he is still going. And he's not saying there's anything wrong with AEW did. That was the right call.
Yeah.
But the fact that in 2004, if this match is happening today, it would have been stopped a long time ago.
Eddie wrestles,
did not faint.
Eddie wrestles a whole other 10 minutes of this.
How Eddie Guerrero did not keel over is fucking beyond me.
Honestly, I know Eddie made the business blade, right? Severed the artery on accident. So this match right here accidentally turned what would have been a pretty, a good Eddie Guerrero performance into what I consider one of the most heroic babyface performances of all time. It's legendary. I would put this right up there with Kurt Angle wrestling with a broken neck at WrestleMania 19, even though he wasn't a babyface technically. I would put this up there as well with Cody Rhodes wrestling with a torn pec at Hell in a Cell last summer. Like, you cannot say a bad thing about Eddie Guerrero if you've seen this match. I will not allow it.
No.
At all. Put his body and his life on the line for us. And the man deserves all the respect in the world. He didn't have to.
He did not, no. JBL goes for a chair, but he has the championship belt behind his back. So he throws the chair in the ring to distract the referee as he's about to use the belt. Eddie Guerrero hits a low blow, and he grabs the title belt. The referee is looking right at Eddie Guerrero, but this ain't about the title anymore. He bashes JBL over the head with the title. It is a disqualification victory, a disqualification loss, however, for Eddie Guerrero. That's my only issue with this match. We went through this shitty.
Should have had a clean finish.
You paid $40 for it. I understand. They want the story to keep going. This JBL gimmick just came into fruition. You can't pin him now. I understand why they did it. But it's just kind of a sour finish to a shitty pay-per-view.
You could have had Eddie lie, cheat, and steal and, like, have him win that way. And then Bradshaw would have just asked Kurt for a rematch. Like, we still would have gotten the Texas Bull Rope match either way. But a disqualification finish just really,
it's the cheap and lazy way out.
Very similar to Unforgiven 2002, which emanated from this same exact building, ironically.
It's Vince's go-to. It was always Vince's go-to. We don't want to squash the new gimmick. We don't want to squash the brand new toy. Disqualification finish.
Yeah. But Eddie Guerrero, after the bell, is not done with the beatdown. He continues raining down punches on Bradshaw, and he takes a steel chair and grants JBL not one, but 2 receipts right to the head.
I was about to say, they talk about this match on Viva La Raza, the Legacy of Eddie Guerrero 3-disc DVD set, which is excellent, by the way. If you can hunt that down, do it. They interviewed JBL prior to the Great American Bash match, and he talks about that chair shot, and all JBL says is, yep, I hit him with that chair, and yeah, Eddie gave it right back to me a few times, because they don't want to go in Great American Bash, but here and in the Great American Bash, Eddie Guerrero gets his revenge. Big time for that chair shot.
Good Lord. And Eddie able, with pouring blood out of his forehead, where you can literally see where he made the incision, he goes up to the top and hits a frog splash.
Crazy.
How is this guy not a hero to people? Like
this match for the performance alone after that chair shot, and you know what? Altogether, 4.5 stars. This
4.5. Wow. I'm gonna go 4. I'm gonna say that this would have been a lot better with a clean finish, but oh god, I mean, the bull rope match I think was better than this, even though it had a dusty finish at the Great American Bash. It had a finish though. This match did not have a finish, so I can't exactly state that this is a complete story necessarily.
It was not for this match. The JBL gimmick, I don't think would have taken off as it did. JBL has said in interviews before there would be no JBL without Eddie Guerrero.
Mm-hmm. And he's absolutely right. He is absolutely right.
Crazy.
Eddie Guerrero, again, don't take anything away from the guy.
Bad.
Well, I mean, one last thing about Eddie, though. One of the most heroic performances of all time. And JBL has even gone on record as to say that Eddie didn't even remember the last 15 minutes of this match because he lost so much blood.
Crazy.
But
that was fucking wrong.
Muscle memory, like Bell was wrong. Crazy. And delivered with the lights on bright. Absolutely. Eddie and JBL are the stars of this shitty pay-per-view, which I'm giving 4 out of 10.
Fucking sucked. I give it 4 out of 10. Yeah, 4 out of 10. You
4
have a
4 out of 10.
Yeah. It gets the Bret Hart special. It would have got even less if Goldberg was on the show.
Oh God. Yeah. Could you imagine if Goldberg was still with the promotion? Man.
A random tag team going over the best tag team of all time in the opener. It was followed by a women's match with no stakes until the very last second that nobody cared about. Followed by a failed debut. Followed by a joke comedy spot-filled tag team title match. Followed by another joke-filled comedy spot cruiserweight title match complete with sexism. Followed by a mediocre United States title match. Followed by a piss-poor semi-main event. And then you have the main event to stay in the show.
Yeah, this is a one-match show and a half, and the one match does not even have a finish. So this is honestly...
I am not touching this pay-per-view probably ever again.
No. This is honestly, unless it's just to watch the main event by itself, just so I can show people how heroic Eddie Guerrero is. There is no reason to watch this pay-per-view other than that. Absolutely steer clear of this. Thankfully, Bad Blood is better than this. And that'll be our next ZNT Wrestling Show installment on this retrospective. We'll also be talking about Great American Bash, which honestly is not much better than Judgment Day. SmackDown was in the shitter around this time.
It really was.
Yeah.
We also will be talking about AEW Full Gear coming up next month. That'll be a fun show. Have not watched AEW Dynamite tonight, so I don't know if any matches have been added to the card. And then at the end of November, we will be looking at WWE Survivor Series 2022 War Games.
Yes, War Games finally making its debut on the main roster. We got what looks like MJF winning the AEW World Title in his home state of New Jersey at Full Gear, hopefully. And also, Tomas and I were talking about it. Let us know if this sounds like a good idea. But the Montreal Screwjob is going to be 25 years old this year. So we could look back at that as well. Let us know down in the comments section below.
Nobody really talks about the pay-per-view in full. So I think it'd be really fun to look back at that and see what exactly was going on that night.
Oh, yeah. And of course, we will for sure give our thoughts on the Screwjob as a whole as well. Let us know what you thought of Judgment Day 2004. If you have anything to add about this shit show, let us know down in the comments. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's always a lot of fun talking to you guys, and thank you so much if you've been watching this far. Stay tuned for more exciting content very soon, and take care, guys.